All right, the next item is an update related to our redistricting priorities, and Mr. Sorensen is going to come forward and share with both the community and our board where we are related to this process, and answer any questions and take comments from the board that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cashwell. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This is exactly what I'm going to do, is give an update on our redistricting process. So on September 24th, the board did discontinue the comprehensive redistricting and directed staff to look at 3 priority areas. So over the past couple of weeks, we've been out in the community virtually to get input on those 3 priority areas. On November 2nd, Ms. Shea, Ms. Ogburn hosted a virtual meeting to get comments from the community on the feeder patterns for Coyoccasin and Tucker High School. On November 9th, Ms. Ogburn and Ms. Kinsella had a virtual meeting to get community input on the capacity concerns at Colonial Trail and River's Edge. And on November 17th, Ms. Kinsella will be back out in the community virtually to get comments on effectively using the additional capacity at Holiday Elementary School. And again, that's November 17th, and it'll be at 6 o'clock. The 2 previous sessions, November 2nd and 9th, the sessions were recorded. They're available on our website for folks that want to go back and look at those. Following the November 17th input session for Holiday, a public hearing is scheduled for December 10th at 6 p.m. here at Newbridge. And following the public hearing, the board is scheduled to adopt a final plan for redistricting on January 28th. And the plan that is developed will go into effect next school year, the 2021 school year. And so that is my update, and I will be glad to take any questions or comments.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sorensen. I'm going to start with Ms. Okay, I'll
You don't have to start with me, but I got.
All right, well, let me do this. Ms. Kinsella, I'll start you first, and then we'll go around.
Okay, I just want to thank you and staff for doing the meetings with us, the redistricting priority meetings that we've been doing with community members. And as you mentioned, I have mine next week for Holiday to address the pre-K changes that we're making. You know, Ms. Ogburn and fellow board members and I keep talking about we can't redistrict our way out of some of our issues. I think has become a part of our conversation, and which is why the board did what we did in September, and we paused the comprehensive process, and we looked at really looking at our enrollment trends, our programming, location, relevance, capacity, accessibility, all those things. I just think it's important for anybody listening to the redistricting conversation to understand how comprehensively we're looking at everything right now before we make changes. But I had some comments actually, or just a request in terms of, as we're looking at our programming, I look at the middle school programming, the IB, and I would really like to hear more about why Moody's in my district, and Moody draws from 7 middle schools, and then Fairfield the IB program draws from 5 middle schools, and I need to understand why Tuckahoe only serves students at Tuckahoe. That I need to understand that. So if you could please bring some data to board members to help us understand that, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that it, Ms. Kinsella?
It is. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Ogburn?
Okay, do you have our...
I do.
You have maps.
I do indeed.
We can't have a redistricting discussion without looking at a map.
Yeah, please.
If you could, there we go. All right, 3-top district. In our meeting that we had on Monday evening, we had some feedback. I've gotten a lot of emails and phone calls, et cetera. And the consensus is that unusual in a redistricting situation, fairly happy people. We have made a few changes to the map that came from the committee based on community feedback. And so if you could, just highlight this just for the rest of the board's information. The yellow and the area in yellow would be the new zone for Cackley Elementary School. The issue we're having and was brought up at our meeting on Monday by a few constituents, was the little area with the 12 and the little area with the 4 that's in, is currently zoned for Twin Hickory. And those communities all are along the same road. So the folks in those communities are asking to stay in the Twin Hickory in the Twin Hickory Elementary Zone. The issue that we were trying to avoid, if you also look at the little 141, is making an island out of the 141. And so based on the consensus of the feedback of the community, what I'm going to suggest to, and I've already asked the team to look at, is actually bringing the 12 and the 4 back into Twin Hickory, let them stay where they are. I think I've heard from a couple of members of the elementary committee. They are actually in favor of this. They think it's actually better. They were trying to not make a little island out of the 141, but we have figured out how to do that. And so I would suggest, Mr. Sorensen, that we listen to the feedback of our community and let the 12 for that section remain in Twin Hickory. I think it is important to move as few students as possible. We're not overloading Twin Hickory by moving this small area. The community seems happy with the changes. The Twin Hickory community is especially happy because that community, in the last redistricting of this area when Colonial Trail was opened, they did something that in hindsight has not been good for that community, and that's split the community in half. And this brings the Twin Hickory community back together, which is what they want, in the Twin Hickory Elementary School. And if Mr. DeSalt is here, that's music to his ears. But anyway, I think the changes that we've made are really good. And so I would like for us, if we could, when we go forward, show this to the community and bring the 12 and the 4 back into Twin Hickory. The other request I have from constituents is that after we make that change, that there has not been so far feedback on the website. And we've done this in the past with redistricting efforts and other things as well, of course. But the community would like the ability to have input through the website in writing. And we haven't had that. So what I would suggest is that between now and for sharing information at our December meeting, that we have that ability, put the 3 scenarios that we're looking at for Holiday and for this area and for Quioccasin up on the website. Let people have a certain amount of time, 10 days, whatever it is, to submit their comments on this so we can get some additional feedback. And then after we get that, we fine tune these maps, and sometime in December, they're final. We vote on it in January, I think is the plan.
Correct.
But the other issue that has really bubbled up for me in this area is, excuse me, the concern with River's Edge. And the concern with River's Edge is going to stay with us. This plan leaves River's Edge at 103% of capacity. I think that's right, is it not? 103?
I believe it's actually 108, Ms. Ogburn.
108, oh well. So the problem is that River's Edge is going to be even more over capacity based on the development that is coming, the new homes that are planned. One estimate, Mr. Cropper during redistricting made that within 3 to 4 years, we're going to be at 130% capacity for that elementary school. And so when Mr. Pritchard comes up in a few minutes, we're going to have the rest of this conversation. But this area is uncomfortably crowded. And as Ms. Kinsella said, I'm going to steal her line, we cannot redistrict ourselves out of this. We are giving relief to Colonial Trail, which I'm excited about. We are filling Cackley, which I think it's about time. The other issues we cannot fix with redistricting. So we are going to have to fix it with construction. And so we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, but I appreciate if you'll fix that. I think we're good to go.
Absolutely, yes, ma'am.
And then I think this area, I mean, I'm not hearing complaints. With redistricting, that's amazing. We're moving and affecting about 400 and something students.
490, so obviously we take out these 16.
Take out these 16,
Right.
so I think that kind of fixes it.
Correct.
And again, just a shout out to the members of the committee. They're the ones who gave the basis for this.
Right.
And it was good work. It's well done. And I've heard from a couple of them now that they've seen the tweaks that have been made based on community feedback. So I think we're good to go.
Okay,
But
very
thank
good.
you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Ogburn. Mrs. Shea.
Thank you, Chair Cooper. So I've participated not only in the official town hall, Mrs. Ogburn and I participated in a PTA town hall and a heck of a lot of phone conversations in the last couple weeks, both from constituents that are directly affected by the move and would be moving schools, as well as kind of the larger Quioccasin and Tuckahoe Middle School communities. As expected, there are some people who just flat out opposed to moving, but I have to say most of the feedback I've gotten understands the bigger picture of what's trying to be accomplished here. And many support the positive impact on feeder patterns, proximity, balancing family involvement, and socioeconomics. There's larger community support from the larger kind of Quioccasin Middle School and many parts of my district who've experienced some of these unbalances firsthand. The two resounding concerns that continue to come up are around the timing and the programming. So in terms of timing, we are obviously in the middle of a pandemic, which is challenging and which is what caused us to part of what caused us to scale back the comprehensive for this fall. In terms of programming, like Ms. Kinsella alluded to, Tuckahoe Middle School has a unique situation with their IB program. And so there's a lot of questions around what would happen to that. And as we're starting to look at all of our programming for middle schools and high schools, I think access to the IB program at Tuckahoe Middle School is really something that needs to be looked at to make sure that it mirrors other parts of the county. This still remains a priority for me. As many emails that I've gotten said, this is just flat out the right thing to do. This still remains a priority for me, but I'd like to hear from my colleagues on this. I propose that we remove this from the priority areas being considered this fall, and we instead revisit next fall, perhaps part of comprehensive redistricting, when we have a more concrete idea of what program changes might be happening and how that would affect capacity at Tuckahoe Middle School and Quioccasin Middle School. Also, hopefully we'll have more stability in our larger community at that time. So I don't know how my other board members, if we have consensus to table this for a year.
Well, Ms. Shea, since it involves one of my schools, I'll weigh in. Surprisingly enough, I haven't heard a lot from my constituents at Tuckahoe Middle about this, which shows me they either don't know that it's going on, or they don't really understand it, or they're just not, for whatever reason, not participating in the discussion very much, which tells me we're not communicating. Because I think if the broader Tuckahoe Middle School community knew that this was being discussed as much as it has been, if they were aware, if it was on their radar at all, we'd be hearing from them, but we're not. But that being said, having participated with your constituents, listening to what people are saying, this is what we're doing for Colonial Trail is a capacity, we must do it kind of move because there's no more room at the end. I think working with feeder patterns, I think that probably is a better fit for the big picture items of comprehensive in the future. So if that's your recommendation, I will support you in that, and we'll table it to another day. I'm okay with it. Ms. Kinsella?
Yes, given I was already interested in looking at the programming there, so absolutely I support moving this to possibly a next fall discussion.
Ms. Atkins, how do you feel about it?
I support my colleagues in whatever it is that you want to do, because you're experts of your communities, and so I do support whatever you choose at this point.
So I think we have consensus.
Thank you. And another piece which Ms. Ogburn pointed out, and I skipped over my notes, is I had, and I've heard this from a lot of constituents, but I had one mom particularly I had a conversation with, and she said, I read every email that comes to me from Henrico and from my kids' schools, and I missed this until a week ago. And Andy Jinks is doing incredible work cranking out communications, but there's a lot right now to be communicated, and it's easy to miss some of these things. And so that conversation with that mom just really stuck with me, that I think next year, hopefully we won't have as many changing details to be communicated constantly, and our community can have a little more bandwidth to really engage in this conversation. So thank you to my colleagues. Again, this remains a priority for me. I just think it's more prudent to consider it next fall. Thank you.
Ms. Ogburn?
So that means, I take it then we're going to have 2 items up on the website for comment.
Correct. I'll get with Mr. Jenks, but I mean, in my mind, we would leave the information up there and just put proposal withdrawn at the
Okay.
request of the board or
That would be
something,
awesome.
something like that. That way, it's up there as part of the record that we went through the process.
Or
And
proposal withdrawn until next fall, or something like that, because
Right.
it's still a priority,
Correct.
but
Future, will be.
now's not the time.
And that way, just thinking of the timing of this, so I have a couple of people who've been emailing me, when's it going to open? Do we have any idea when this might be available? And I'm not pushing on the website for comment.
It may be there now. If not, it will be there shortly.
Well, you guys
Right.
work fast,
Right.
so thank you very much, appreciate that.
Ms. Sher, are you finished? Okay. Ms. Atkins? Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Cashwell?
All right, no other comments or questions related to the redistricting item. Thank you, Mr.
Thanks.
Sorensen, for that information, and we'll, as he noted, get the information updated on our website.